parent training back in person since the pre-COVID days. Pretty exciting. So today we're going to kind of just figure out how the in-person parent trainings work the best. So as you guys know, the past couple of years we've just been doing a slideshow with us talking over. We post it online for you guys to watch. But now that we actually have the option to be in person again, we want to be more interactive. So definitely at any point throughout the slideshow, if anyone has a question, just feel free to raise your hand. We can talk about it. As you see, we do have the cameras, so they're all pointing at me. So we don't have any of your guys' faces, so don't worry about that. Yeah, so we can get started. So for the first one, I'm just going to do a very big overview of a lot of ABA principles. So it's going to be very much touching base on different topics. So if anything seems interesting or that you'd like to learn more about, definitely let me know. And then in future parent trainings, that's something that we can focus on to make it more targeted for what you guys want to know. So we've been doing this for a few years now, so at this point we've covered a lot of the topics. So that way we don't bore anyone and we can actually focus on stuff that would be helpful. Cool, so to get started, so new format, as I just said, after I made a slide about that. So what we want to do, as you can see, we have myself, Gary, Natalie here, as the BCBA, so we can always break up into small groups at the end and kind of do really targeted stuff. So that's how we plan on doing that. Obviously the first one, as I said, very general overview, but let us know too, and even if next week, if you guys think of something, feel free to reach out to clinical director, your BCBA, the principal of the school. They'll let us know and we can always build those topics into any group training that we do. Thank you. So to start, we're going to start the basic ABCs of behavior, which I'm sure most of you guys have heard of these by now. So we have the antecedent, behavior, and consequence. So with that, anytime we get a new kiddo, if we have a new behavior, we need to figure out what is this behavior. So as we know, all behaviors, there's a reason why we see those behaviors. There's always something that happens before it, we have the behavior itself, and then something happens after. So with ABA, when we talk about consequences, it could be positive, it could be negative. So with us, we know typically when someone says, oh, you're going to have consequences, it's more of a negative connotation to that. But as far as ABA is concerned, a consequence just means something happens after a behavior occurs. And so with that, we want to look at, like I said, the ABCs. And once we have that data, we can really see what is this function of the behavior. Why is this kiddo engaging in this behavior? What are they trying to accomplish? What are they trying to do? And that gets us into the functions of behavior. So as we know, we typically say that there are 4 main functions of behavior. So with that, we have to escape or avoid something, to try to gain attention. And with that, as we know, kids love attention, especially in a school setting when you might have 1 teacher to 10 students, or we have 2 teacher aides, a teacher aide to 15 students. There's a competition for that teacher attention. At home, anyone with a sibling, automatic competition to try to get that parental attention. And oftentimes with kiddos too, attention's attention. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be yelling, it could be screaming, it could be giving a praise statement. But attention's attention for a lot of our kiddos, and they may not see a difference between that positive and negative. It's just, hey, I have the attention, no one else does, I'm winning. So that's with the attention, and then to gain access. So when we say gain access, it just means to try to have something that you don't currently have. Whether that's a food, a drink, a snack, a toy, electronic, to go to an area that you can't go to go and see someone that you aren't currently seeing. And then that last one is going to be that sensory automatic. That's essentially you do something because it feels good. As we know, like tomorrow, I'm so excited, I have a massage coming, that's all automatic reinforcement, I'm doing it because it's going to feel good. As we know with our kiddos, a lot of those stereotypies, we got the hand flapping, the twirling hair, flipping a pen, all of those we say would be automatically reinforcing because you're trying to get a sensory stimulation out of that. And with the functions of behavior, probably about 10 years or so ago, it was very much, oh, this is a behavior, this is the function. One behavior, one function. But now as the field is expanding and we have a lot more research going on, something that we are very much seeing a trend in is that there's often not just one function to a behavior. It could be that I'm tantruming and falling to the ground to escape the demand, gain your attention, and also gain access to my iPad. So it's typically a bunch of functions all at once, so then we have to determine which function is the most powerful in the moment so we can intervene with that function. Also with the functions, it could start off as one thing, but then become maintained by another. So you could have a kiddo who engages, the teacher places a demand, they protest to try to escape the demand, all of a sudden now all the kids are looking at them. So now that behavior becomes maintained by that pure attention. So it's always something we have to evaluate in the moment, what is the current function in this moment, and that's what we're going to intervene on. Thank you. So we got the reinforcement punishment. So in the field of ABA, reinforcement, we just mean that the behavior increases in the future. Punishment, the behavior decreases in the future. So that's all we're looking at is that rate of the behavior when we talk about reinforcement and punishment. And then we also have the positive and negative. So with positive, something gets added, negative, something gets removed. So with that, we can have a positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement means we're adding something to see an increase in that behavior. Negative reinforcement, we're removing something to see an increase in that behavior. Positive punishment, we're adding something to see a decrease in that behavior. Negative punishment, we're removing something to see a decrease in that behavior. I think that's all after that one. Yep, go to the next one. And so then we got some prevention strategies. So these are things that you do to try to avoid these problem behaviors, to stop them from happening before they even occur. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can use prevention strategies. So some of those could be just a simple visual schedule to kind of give the kids an expectation, this is what's going to happen, this is what to expect. That's something that in and of itself could prevent problem behaviors. Then we have those environmental manipulations. So it could be something as simple if we know we got a kiddo who likes to run out the front door, put a lock up high. Now they can't get out that front door. If we have a kiddo who likes to see pictures of space, but we know they really hate sitting at their desk, then let's put pictures of space on their desk, make it more motivating for them to go to that space. So there's so many different environmental manipulations that we can do. Avoiding situations. I know myself. I have a 14-month-old. She loves the dog's water bowl. It's a battle we've been having lately. So sometimes I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to fight this battle. I pick up the water dish and put it where she can't get it. I'm avoiding the situation altogether. Out of sight, out of mind, can't touch it. I don't have to deal with it. So definitely avoiding, it happens a lot. We do it all day, every day. Breaking down bigger tasks into smaller steps. So it could be that maybe your kiddo, they have an assignment that they have to read a chapter over the weekend. So instead of expecting them to sit down and read that entire chapter in one fell swoop, break it down. Like, hey, read for 5 minutes, now you can have a little break. Read for 10 minutes, now you can have a break. Because some kiddos, when they see that massive task that they have to do, it's like, that's going to take me 5 hours. Why do I want to do that? And they shut down in the moment. So let them know, like, hey, there is an end in sight. You can get breaks. You can break it down. Sometimes that in of itself is enough to prevent those problem behaviors. We also have offering choice. Choice is such a powerful thing, as we know, and it's so simple. Asking a kiddo, hey, do you want to sit at that table or that table? Do you want to eat your sandwich first or your fruit first? Just those little things give them that sense of control. Because as we know, just kids in general, they don't have control, especially at school, at home, because you have certain expectations. At school, kids don't have a lot of control because certain things have to be taught. There are certain expectations that have to be followed that kids don't have a lot of control. So even giving a simple choice, hey, do you want to do your reading worksheet or your math worksheet first? That can help give kids that sense of control and prevent those problem behaviors. First then, use this statement all day, every day. First, do your homework, then you can get on the iPad. First, put away the dishes, then you can watch TV. Just a simple first then statement. It is magical, it works. Typically, it works with some of our kiddos and sometimes. That sets that expectation that you know kind of that end is in sight and that they will get something out of it that they do want. And then something always to keep in mind is to address those setting or medical events. So that could be if your kiddo is tired, if they're sick, if they're thirsty, if they're hungry, you're gonna see more behaviors. So if we know that kiddo got home from school, they say, oh, I didn't like my lunch today, so I didn't eat it. They're hungry, that's probably not the best time to tell them, like, hey, guess what, we're gonna sit down and do this brand new math worksheet. Give them food first, address that hunger that they have, and then do that non-preferred task. We know if a kiddo's sick, that's something we do in ABA. If we know we have a kiddo coming in sick, we can see if they're coughing, sneezing, we're gonna take it easier on them. Because it's unfair to expect anyone to be following every demand, doing everything when you don't feel good. So that's always something to look at is what is happening. Are they sick? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they tired? Address that first, and then we can jump on to other things. So reinforcers. So these are things that we use to try to increase those positive behaviors. So with this, I love the phrase, catch your child being good. Because we know with our kiddos, oftentimes we can hyper-focus on the negative. That we're so focused on, when you get home, you must make your bed, you have to clean up the toys, you have to do this, that sometimes we're so focused on correcting those problem behaviors that we forget to reinforce and to catch the kids being good. Hey, I love how you just sat at the table 5 minutes quietly doing your homework. Thank you. Instead of them engaging in behaviors, and now that's when we come in to give them the attention. So you just want to try to catch your kid being good. Token systems. So these Token system in and of itself could be a whole presentation. It is a big topic. So I'm definitely just very briefly touching on that for this presentation. With a token system, that's a common thing, like a chore chart at home or some type of an earning system that the kids can see that they're actively earning those tokens to try to get that big reinforcement. So they get the small reinforcement by seeing those tokens. It could be a star, it could be a check, it could be a smiley face, a Pokemon, a Peppa Pig, that's what the kids like. And then they see it, and then once they know they have 5 or whatever the expectation may be, they get that ultimate reinforcer. So we use token systems when we want to have the kids earn something big, but it's like they can't get that right now, so we want to reinforce the small steps up until we get to that point. So this is something, preferences do not equal reinforcers. Because with reinforcement, there's always something attached to it. So like, for example, I love Dr. Pepper, but if you tell me I have to do 20 push-ups to get Dr. Pepper, nah, I don't need it. But if you do the same thing, I love Twix as well. Tell me I have to do 20 push-ups to get Twix, I'm going to do the 20 push-ups because I want the Twix. So that's always something to evaluate too, is that something may be a preference, but once it's made contingent on something, once it has to be earned, once a kid has to do work to gain it, they may not want it anymore. So you always want to evaluate to make sure something is an actual reinforcer and not just a preference. And with that, you have to obviously test it out, have them do the work, see, do we see an increase or decrease in this behavior? So with that too, evaluate the reinforcers to ensure that they maintain that reinforcer value. As you guys know, you know your kids, they go through different things. It could be today we love 3 Little Pigs, and now it's Dr. Seuss, and now it's Pokemon, or whatever it happens to be. SpongeBob, yes, SpongeBob, that was what I wanted to say. So with that, you always want to make sure what you're using is actually reinforcing, and that's not something like, oh, you told me last week you love unicorns, unicorn, 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 when the kid doesn't actually like unicorn. Not going to be effective at all. And then with that, so there is a difference between bribery and reinforcement. So this is something that we will hear often in the field, that we just bribe kids all day long and that's how we get them to do what we want. So with that, it is a fine line that differentiates that bribery from reinforcement. And with that, it's all about when you state that contingency. So with bribing, it's the kid's already in that tantrum, hey, if you want the Twix, stop. Versus if you set the expectation beforehand, if you can set the table and you eat dinner, then you get the Twix. So in that case, we stated it before any behaviors have occurred, the kid is actively earning it, versus they're in the behavior and now we present that reinforcer. Since over time, our kids are smart, they know what we're trying to do oftentimes. So then they learn, like, oh, mom hasn't asked me if I want a Twix today, I'm gonna tantrum, now she's gonna ask me if I want that Twix. So you always wanna make sure they try to sub that contingency in advance and not bribe your way out of things. Which, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's quick, it's easy, it does work, it's kind of that Band-Aid, it fixes the issue in the moment, but then over time, it becomes a much bigger issue and the kid's not learning what we actually want them to learn. Planned ignoring. So this is something, a behavior intervention strategy that we use oftentimes. So with that, we typically use it for behaviors that are attention seeking, because with planned ignoring, we are planning to ignore that behavior. With that, we say ignore the behavior, not the child. So if I'm ignoring Natalie's playing with items, oh, Natalie, thank you for sitting nicely. So I'm ignoring the inappropriate behavior, but not ignoring her as the person. So that way we can teach the kids, hey, this is what I want to see, ignoring the problem behavior. And then with time, it does, if we identify the function correctly, it will get better. So with that, we also can run into extinction and extinction bursts. This is another massive topic. It could be its own presentation in and of itself. Basically, extinction in ABA terms is when a behavior that was previously reinforced doesn't get reinforced. So if we have a kiddo who's used to every time they walk into Publix, they hit their parent and then they get a bag of chips. Just for, let's say the parent's trying to calm them down. So in order to put that behavior on extinction, kiddos hitting the parent at Publix, they do not get that bag of chips. So with that, we have what we call the extinction burst. It gets worse before it gets better. I love the example of a vending machine. So with that, commonly you go up to the vending machine, put in your money, hit the button, get the drink. Put in your money, hit the button, get the drink. Then what happens? I put in the money, I'm hitting the button, nothing comes out. I start hitting the button more, nothing. Maybe shake it a little bit, nothing. Give it a kick, oh, now it came out, awesome. So that's what we call that extinction burst, is that I'm engaging in more behaviors now, some new behaviors, to try to get that reinforcement. So plan to do that. If you do put something on extinction, you always want to plan it very well, because it's something, it's going to get worse before it gets better. We're going to see that extinction burst. And then at that moment, if you reinforce during that extinction burst, then that kind of just ups the ante for the kiddo. So with my vending machine example, put it in, I kept pushing, I shook it, I kicked it. Next time I go to the vending machine, I put in my dollar, hit the button, nothing happens. I'm not gonna push, I'm not gonna shake, I'm jumping right to the kicking. That doesn't work, gotta up the ante, grab it back. Pretty dramatic example, but that's how things can shape up. Just wanna make sure, if you do go the extinction route, I recommend planning it out. If you can consult a BCBA or something like that, because it is a very specific procedure that when done right, it's effective, but it can go wrong, and when it goes wrong, it's not fun. And so with that, what we always want to do is we want to teach those replacement behaviors. So if we have a kiddo who's used to, let's say, calling out in class to try to get attention. Miss Vicky, Miss Vicky, Miss Vicky. So we want to we put that behavior on extinction. So they say, Miss Vicky, Miss Vicky, Miss Vicky. Vicky doesn't answer, she puts that behavior on extinction. But now how is the kid supposed to gain her attention? So we just want to teach that appropriate replacement behavior. She's not going to answer when it's just like, Miss Vicky, Miss Vicky, Miss Vicky. Oh, hey, what do you want? To reinforce and teach that appropriate behavior. So anytime you put something on extinction, anytime you tell a kiddo don't do something, you always want to tell them what to do. Instead of like, hey, don't jump up, don't swipe the food off the table. Thank you for sitting nicely at the table. I like how you kept the plate on the table. We always want to try to phrase things and what we want the kiddo to do instead of always pointing out like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. Because then that's just showing them more things to not do instead of teaching them what we want to see and what we want them to do. So compliance training. So this is a very hot topic in the field of ABA right now. With compliance training, it gets into a lot of that escape extinction as well. So overall, we know kids, it's life. You have to comply with demands that are placed. There are certain expectations you have to do. When parents come in and say, hey, it's time to get dressed, we got to go to school, we expect that you get up and go to school. When you're at school, you have to sit in your chair, you have to comply with demands. You have to go and do transitions, you have to go to certain classes. So we need our kiddos to comply. And as we know at work, the amount of demands we get placed at work every day, plenty of stuff that we would love to avoid doing, but to function in society, you have to be able to do things that you don't want to do. So that's where the compliance training comes in. And it's that fine line, because even with compliance training, we want to teach the kids to comply with demands, but not to comply with every demand placed on them, because that's setting them up then for potential abuse in the future, because they're used to, oh, an adult told me to do it, so I'm going to do it without even thinking. So with that, we ought to make sure that we're just teaching those self-advocacy skills, teaching kids it's okay to say no, and to honor when they do tell us no, so that way they see that their words do have power. Then hopefully in the future, if something happens and they say no, then they know it's okay to say no. And if someone doesn't honor that, that may be an issue. And with the compliance, so we also get into prompting. Prompting, once again, is the big topic. We can have most to least prompting, least to most prompting. Prompting is just a way to get that compliance. So with some things, you could either do a least to most. That may be if the demand is to pick up the pen. Oh, I said pick up the pen. Hand over hand. This is how we pick up the hand. So that would be an example of least to most. Try to be as least intrusive as possible versus most to least. I'm doing the opposite. I'm going to jump in, physically prompt. Oh, pick up the pen. And go the opposite way. Typically with that, we'll do least to most on a skill we know the kiddo has or that we're actively trying to fade back our prompts on, versus we'll use most to least prompts on a skill we know that the kiddo may not have, so that way we teach them how to do it the correct way up front, and then fade back our prompts. With that, you can do something called prompt dependency, which that's a whole different ballgame. So it's always that fine line too of you never want kids to only wash their hands and do each step only if an adult's telling them to. Because we do run into that too, that kids become so reliant on prompts that they do nothing, they just kind of stand there until they get prompted or someone tells them to go up and do something. So that's to talk about the prompt fading. So you do want to reinforce that compliance and independence. Because as we know, the end goal is that we want these kids to be functioning independent in society. Whatever their choices may be, whatever living situation, we want them to try to be as independent in society as possible. So that's always the goal that we have in mind. And yeah, like I said, definitely those self-advocacy skills are important to teach kids. It's okay to say no, but sometimes, like not to hit the dog, they said no. No means no in this case. So it's always that fine line of trying to determine when they say no and they can't be honored, but when their no can be honored.